There's Rabbi's mom,
Oh,
the Grinsfelders, Beth Swag, right? Hi, Mom. I was gonna make the sound. Get a head start, but it didn't happen. I should have bought some cucumbers today. I forgot we didn't have any.
Everybody's muted except us.
I unmuted us. Until we get started.
I usually put on mute so you can't hear me yelling at the dogs in the background.
How many dogs do you have now?
We currently have 2 that are home and retired. We have one that's halfway through her training, and then one that went back maybe last month and unfortunately was discharged from the program because he has hip dysplasia. So he was adopted by a family in Michigan. So we're just holding our breath, waiting for Ella to see how far she can go. Take it from there. We're taking a break from having a puppy at the moment.
That's not easy.
No, it's
not easy to do.
And when you're training, you really have to be diligent about it and do something every day. And it's tiring. And we've raised at least 10 puppies, and I know.
That's wonderful. I give you a lot of credit for that. I mean, my daughter just went through puppydom. So.
It's a lot of work, and I wish everybody kept in touch. There's a couple of puppies that we haven't heard from their families, and we always wonder and hope that they're okay. We have one that went to Spain. I think she's in Madrid.
Oh.
So yeah.
So does she write or call?
No, and we're not really allowed to contact them. If they want to keep in contact with us, then they're given our information. But we're not supposed to reach out to them. So some we're in contact with and some we're not. There you go.
Shabbat shalom, everyone. It is so wonderful to see all of you. Tonight's a special night for so many reasons, but first, because it's Shabbat, but for a lot of other reasons, which I'll get to in just a second. I see a few faces that haven't seen mine before, or at least before tonight. So I'll introduce myself. My name is Rabbi Meir Bargeron, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to Congregation Achdut V'Shalom. And we are here tonight to bring in Shabbat together as a holy community. And we are here tonight to gather in joy for the bar mitzvah of Matthew Hadashi, which will formally take place on this very bima tomorrow morning. However, Matthew is going to be helping me out a little bit tonight, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But I'm very, very happy, all of you who are here to celebrate with Matthew, welcome. So a couple of things. So first off, you found the sanctuary. Excellent. And our ushers helped you find your seat. Great. So a couple other things that you might need to know. The restrooms are going to be out that door that you came in, and you just kind of keep going past the front door, and you will find two restrooms on the left. You can pick the one that's right for you. We are asking because we are still working with COVID-19 precautions in our building. So we have a couple things to ask of you. First off, the area of the building that we are in tonight is this space here, and in the lobby and in the restrooms. And we ask that you not go into other areas of the building, just so that we can keep that safe and sanitary. So that's the first thing. The second thing, and I see 100%, I hate the word compliance, but 100%, yeah, good job with wearing masks. So our current rules are that we are wearing masks when we're inside the building, with the exception of people who are vaccinated and are doing things up here. So other than that, we ask that you wear your mask while you're here, and I appreciate that you're doing that. Secondly, we're maintaining social distance very well in here, so no more needs to be said about that. And then a note about singing. So when it's time to sing, I talked to a person who is a Jewish day school teacher, and she calls it whisper singing. So when we have sung prayers, please, by all means, if your heart is moved, please join in and sing along. But I ask that you keep it in your mask, and that's because the less volume we have, the less stuff that's going into the air, and that keeps our environment just a little bit safer for everybody. So thank you for your cooperation with all of that. And then yeah, that's good. So we will continue on page 128, page 128 of the Siddur, with what has become our gathering song, Hine Matov. Hine matov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov u'manayim, shevet achyot gam yachad. Hine matov, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov, shevet achyot gam yachad. Hine matov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov u'manayim, shevet achyot gam yachad. Hine matov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov u'manayim, shevet achyot gam yachad. Hine matov, yalalai, yalalai, yalalai. Hine matov, yalalai, yalalai, yalalai. Hine matov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. yachad. Hine ma tov u'ma-na'im. Shevet achyot gam yachad. Hine ma tov u'ma-na'im. Shevet achim gam yachad means how good it is that all of us are able to be here together, to bring in Shabbat, to be together as a community, and to be together as a community for Matthew Hadashi and his family. Yeah. We will continue our service on page 142. Page 142. We have a song and a prayer kind of all woven together that we often sing at the beginning of our time together on Shabbat. It's a prayer about angels who come to us at the beginning of Shabbat, and angels who stay with us throughout Shabbat, and angels who leave us when we come to the end of Shabbat. It's a song about angels and a prayer about angels, but it's also a prayer about peace, because these angels are bringing us peace, and they will be with us in peace, and they will leave in peace. Page 142, Shalom Aleichem. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Bachuni l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzetzechem l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Let us continue our service on page 127, a few pages back, page 127. Let us read responsively. I'll begin, and then you will read in the alternating paragraphs. There are days when we seek things for ourselves and measure failure by what we did not gain. On Shabbat, we seek not to acquire, but to share. There are days when we exploit nature as if it were a horn of plenty that can never be exhausted. On Shabbat, we stand in wonder before the mystery of creation. There are days when we act as if we cared nothing for the rights of others. On Shabbat, we remember that justice is our duty and a better world our goal. And please join me. So we embrace on Shabbat, day of rest, day of wonder, day of peace. As we come ever closer to the moment in which we will enter Shabbat as a community, I'd like you to take a moment and think about right now, and think about this day, and think about this week. Are there things that you are celebrating? Are there things that are bringing joy into your life? Are there things that have made you laugh? Did something really good happen to you at work or at school? Although it's June, so maybe nothing in school, but who knows? Something really, really good happened to you this week? Whatever that is for you, I want you to feel that joy for just a moment and grab onto it, because you'll be taking that with you, and that will become part of your Shabbat joy. Think again about today and about tonight and about this week. Are there things that haven't gone so well? Maybe you're not feeling great. Maybe you got some bad news. Maybe you had an argument or a conflict with somebody who you love and it feels really painful. Maybe something didn't go great at work or at school. Whatever that is, whatever pain or sadness or just discomfort that you're noticing this Shabbat, or as we enter Shabbat, I want you to take hold of that. And I want you to try to let it go. And as we enter in Shabbat, as we enter Shabbat together, may we share the joy we each have experienced. May we find a way to share that with each other. If we've got a lot of joy and somebody else maybe doesn't have so much, let's share that so that we can have a Shabbat of joy and a Shabbat of community and a Shabbat of peace. And I have a feeling that when we get to the end of Shabbat, some of those things are still going to be there, the things that we left behind. But I'm hoping and I'm praying that they'll look a little different after Shabbat. And now we will formally enter Shabbat with the candles. We will light the candles of Shabbat. You will find the blessing on page 120. And to light the Shabbat candles, I invite Matthew's mother, Leah, and Matthew's father, Shai, to the bima to light candles. Batch or light or whatever you choose. Light then bless. Yes.
Baruch atah Adonai
Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu le'adlik ner shel Shabbat. Amen. Thank you so much. That was beautiful. And mazel tov on your family simcha.
Thank you.
That's them. Look what they just did. That could be you next. All right, we will continue our service on page 138, page 138, with the prayer we call Lecha Dodi, the prayer that is written as a love poem to Shabbat. And the image that we have is returning to Shabbat each week is like returning to a beloved or is like a family reunion for a joyous occasion. We greet Shabbat with the same abandon, the same joyous love that we greet each other when we see each other after a long time. We will sing verses 1, 5, and 9, verses 1, 5, and 9. And when we get to verse 9, I'll ask you to stand up when we get there and face the door back there. And we'll say the last verse together. We'll sing it together, and that way your blessings can go out that door, out the front door, onto Old Mill Road, out into the world, wherever they are needed most. Lecha Dodi likrat kala pnei Shabbat nikabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala pnei Shabbat nikabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala pnei Shabbat nikabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, ishmianu el hamiuchad, Adonai echad u'shmo echad, l'shemu tiferet ve'litila. Lecha Dodi likrat kala pnei Shabbat Nekabela lecha dodi. Likarat kala. Pene Shabbat nekabela. Hitoreri, toreri. Kiva ore kuni ori. Uri, uri, shidaberi. Kevod Adonai alaik nigla. Lecha dodi. Likarakala. Pene Shabbat. Nekabela lecha dodi. Likarakala. Pene Shabbat nekabela. Please rise. Boi v'shalom ateret bala. Gam besimcha uvetzola. Toch emunei am segula. Boi chala, lecha dodi, likarakala, pene Shabbat, nekabela, lecha dodi, likarakala, pene Shabbat, nekabela. Don't sit down quite yet. Take a moment and greet each other here with a little wave or whatever feels right for you. And please turn around and look at Samara, because then you can then you are looking at the camera, and that means that the members of our community who are joining us by Zoom are also a part of our community here tonight. We are all here together as one community. All right, you can be seated for just a moment, but you're going to be getting up in a sec, just to give you a heads up, but you can have a seat right now. And so I mentioned a little while ago that Mr. Matthew Hadashi would be helping me out during the service tonight. So now we've come to that time. So Matthew, come on up. Wow. All right. Coming up the steps. Great. Here you are. You made it. Okay. You can take your mask off. All right. And you can step up here. We'll share that. And I got a question for you. I'm going to adjust the mic. You don't need to do anything. How's it feel up here?
Pretty good.
Pretty good. You know, it looks like it agrees with you.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. All right. So then now we're going to have to accomplish, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So why don't you tell everybody the prayer that we're about to do?
We're about to do Chatzi Kaddish.
And they are going to find that on page 144. Tell them that.
And we're going to find this on page 144.
Excellent. Please rise.
Please rise.
Okay. Please rise. It takes time, trust me. They don't stand up for me all the time. 144. You ready? All right.
Yikada v'yikada shemera ba.
Amen.
B'ma divrachute v'amlich malchute v'chayechon u'yomechon u'chayedechu beit Yisrael bagala bagala u'izman kariv b'meru.
Amen.
Yehi shmeira
Ba'mevorach
la'olam olam me'omaya
Yitbarach.
Yitbarach v'yishtarach v'yitpar v'yit'armam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithala shemei dekudesha b'richu le'lamin kol berchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata damiran ve'alma b'meru.
Amen. Okay, we're going to turn the page. We're going to keep going. Baruch Hu. Okay. Yep. Baruch Hu. And we're going to face towards the. Yeah, there you go. Good. You stay right there. Okay, good. We'll continue with Baruch Hu on page 146.
Baruch Hu and Adonai Havarach.
Baruch Adonai Avarach Leolam Va'ed. That's fantastic. Awesome. You may be seated. Okay. Okay. All right. So you're going to stay here for a minute, okay? We are going to continue on page 149, page 149. And we are going to read, the prayer at the top of the page. And I'd like to invite you to read, let us all read that together. And we'll finish with the blessing in Hebrew. Just read with me, okay? Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Baruch atah Adonai, Hamariv, Aravi. Excellent. All right, we will continue on page 151. Page 151, and we will say the prayer together at the bottom of the page. Please join Matthew and I. Wisdom and wonder, passion and instruction, story and symbol, all these things your Torah gives to us. And the more we devote ourselves to it, the more it grows and gives. What could be a truer token of your abiding love than this holiest of your works and the living language that gives it form? Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Israel. We will continue on the next page with Shema. Please rise as you are able.
Shema Yisrael,
Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kavo, Ma'od Malchuto, Le'olam Va'ed.
You may be seated.
V'ahavta Adonai Elohecha, v'chol vavcha, u'chol nafshecha, u'chol meodecha, v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele, asher anochi metzavacha, hayom al vavecha, v'shinantam levanecha, v'dibarta b'am, v'shivtecha beveitecha, u'lechtecha v'derech, U'shochvecha u'chumecha, u'kshartam la'ot al yadecha, v'hayu l'totafot b'neinecha, u'chtavtam al mezuzot beitecha u'yisharecha. L'man tizkaru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai, v'yitem kedoshim Elohechem, Ani Adonai Elohechem, Asher Hotzeti Etchem Me'eretz Mitzrayim, Liot Lechem Elohim, Ani Adonai Elohechem.
Adonai Elohechem Emet. Yasher Koach, Matthew. That means good job in Hebrew. So I have a question for you, and we didn't rehearse this part. So just whatever comes into your mind. You've been working really hard for longer than a year because this COVID thing like messed all of this up, right, in terms of timing. And now you're finally going to become a bar mitzvah here on our Bima tomorrow. So out of all the things that you've done and the work that you've done, if you were to give somebody who's going to be doing a bar mitzvah in the future some advice, what is one thing you'd tell them to do?
Don't worry about it and just,
Don't worry about it. I think that is fantastic advice. So Mazel Tov on getting through your Friday night service. You did a beautiful job. I cannot wait tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. to be with you as you are called to the Torah as a bar mitzvah. Thank you so much, Matthew. Mazel Tov. You can go back and have a seat. It's really cool to get to do this and be here, isn't it? This is amazing. Thank you again, Matthew. We will continue on page 159. Page 159. And we are about to sing the prayer that is often called our people's song of redemption. And this is the song that they sang by tradition. So, seen the Ten Commandments, or if you've listened in religious school, the Israelites are being chased by Pharaoh and Pharaoh's army right up to the edge of the Sea of Reeds, also called the Red Sea. And where are the Israelites going to go? There's the water right there. It looks pretty grim, but what happens? The waters part, and there is dry land that the Israelites are able to use to cross the sea. And when they get to the other side, miraculously on dry land with Pharaoh's army on the other side, it didn't turn out so well for them. I'm not going to go into it right now, but there they are on the other side, safe and free. And this is the song that they sang to acknowledge the greatness of God for having delivered them from slavery. And I said we're going to start on 159. We're not. We're going to go right. We're going to do the Micha Mocha prayer right next to it on page 158. If you know this, please sing along in your masks. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh, nora tehilot osefele, nora tehilot osefele. Malechutecha ra'u vanecha, bokei ayam lifnei Moshe u'Miriam, zelianu ve'amru, zelianu ve'ameru, Adonai Imloch leolam vaed. Adonai Imloch leolam vaed. Yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai lai lai. Yai lai 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 lai. We're going to continue on page 162, page 162 with the prayer Vishamru V'nei Israel. This is the moment where we recognize how important Shabbat is for us, for our people throughout millennia, and for us here in Fort Wayne tonight. Vishamru V'nei Israel et HaShabbat. La'asod et HaShabbat ledorotam berit olam. Veshamru v'nei Israel et HaShabbat. La'asod et HaShabbat ledorotam berit olam. B'nei uvein b'nei Israel oti leolam, oti leolam. Veshamru v'nei Israel et HaShabbat. La'asot et HaShabbat ledorotam berit olam. Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. Veshamru v'nei Israel et HaShabbat. La'asot et HaShabbat ledorotam berit olam. Uvayom hashvi'i Shabbat vayinafash, Shabbat vayinafash, Shabbat vayinafash. Veshamru v'nei Israel et HaShabbat. La'asot et HaShabbat ledorotam berit olam. In a moment, we will continue our service on page 164. Page 164. And we have come to the prayer that is called, often called the Amidah, which means the standing prayer, because we will be standing in just a moment. It is also called, you'll see on the top of the page of 164 in Hebrew and in English, tefillah, which is the Hebrew word for prayer. And that's because the rabbis called it hatefillah, the prayer. So whether it's the Amidah or simply hatefillah, this is the central prayer of almost every time we get together and pray as a community. So we'll begin on page 164, and then we will continue on the even pages through page 170. And as we do these prayers, you will find the Hebrew on the right-hand side of the page. You'll find the Hebrew spelled in English on the left-hand side of the page. And underneath and over on the left side, the other page entirely, you will find translations or poetic interpretations of the prayer. Whatever it is that is going to be nourishing to you as you offer blessings to God, that is the prayer for you. And that might even mean just being quiet and having your own personal prayer inside yourself. Whatever it is for you, that is what you should be doing. So we will continue on page 164. Please rise as you are able. Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi agi tehilatecha. Adonai, open my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzhak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Golmel Chasadim Tovim, Ve'konei Hakol, Ve'zocher Chasdei Avot v'Imahot, U'mevi Gula livnei v'nehem, Leman Shemo be'ahava, Melech Ozeh u'Moshia u'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham ve'Ezrat Sarah. Atah gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechaye hakoat harav lehoshia, Morid hatal, Mechalkel chayim bechesed, Mechaye hakol berachamim rabim, Somek noflim verofech olim, Umatir asurim, Umekayem emunato, Lishenei afar, Michamocha bal gevurot, Umidom elach, Melech memit umechaye, umatzmiach Yeshua, v'nemanat halachayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, mechaye hakol, atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kadoshim b'chol yom yahalucha selah, Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el hakadosh. You may continue praying silently, and you may be seated when you are finished with your prayers. At this time in the service, we will often, although not every week, but we will often include prayers for our country. And in that spirit, I have something I'd like to bring to you that I see as a secular prayer for our country. I'll explain. This week, the Congress of the United States, both houses, agreed on something. It was a unanimous vote in the Senate. And they passed a law that made Juneteenth a federal holiday. I'll explain what that is in a minute if it's something that's new to you. After they approved it, the president signed it very quickly. And today, President Joe Biden issued a proclamation on Juneteenth Day of Observance 2021. And I'd like to read a couple of pieces of that for you. On June 19th, 1865, nearly 9 decades after our nation's founding and more than 2 years after President Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, enslaved Americans in Galveston, Texas, finally received word that they were free from bondage. As those who were formerly enslaved were recognized for the first time as citizens, Black Americans came to commemorate Juneteenth with celebrations across the country, building new lives and a new tradition that we honor today. In its celebration of freedom, Juneteenth is a day that should be recognized by all Americans. And that is why I am proud to have consecrated Juneteenth as our newest national holiday. I'm going to pause. He said the word consecrated. Juneteenth is a day of profound weight and power, a day in which we remember the moral stain and terrible toll of slavery on our country, what I have long called America's original sin, a long legacy of systemic racism, inequality, and inhumanity. But it is a day that also reminds us of our incredible capacity to heal, hope, and emerge from our darkest moments with purpose and resolve. On Juneteenth, we recommit ourselves to the work of equity, equality, and justice, and we celebrate the centuries of struggle, courage, and hope that have brought us to this time of progress and possibility. That work has been led throughout history by abolitionists and educators, civil rights advocates and lawyers, courageous activists and trade unionists, public officials, and everyday Americans who have helped make real the ideals of our founding documents for all. Psalm 30 proclaims that weeping may endure for a night, but joy cometh in the morning. Juneteenth marks both the long, hard night of slavery and discrimination and the promise of a brighter morning to come. Together, we will lay the roots of real and lasting justice so that we can become the extraordinary country that was promised to all Americans. Juneteenth not only commemorates the past, it calls us to action today. And to that, I will say, amen. We will turn to page 180. You may turn if you like to page 180. And we will have a prayer for peace. Ose shalom bimromav huyase shalom aleinu ve'al kol Israel ve'imeru amen. Ose shalom bimromav uyase shalom aleinu ve'al kol Israel veimeru amen. Ose shalom bimromav uyase shalom aleinu ve'al kol Israel veimeru amen. We have come to the time in our service when we pray for those who are in need of healing of body or of mind or of spirit. I will read our community's Misha Barak list, the list of those for whom we are praying collectively. And when I come to the end of that list, I'll pause and I'll invite you to add the names of anyone that you are praying for this Shabbat. You may offer them wherever you are, here in the room or at home. This Shabbat, we pray for healing of Louis Bloom, Ruth Bloom, Andrew Bosell, Pircha Bat Bracha, Adolf Breitman, Adrienne Breitman, Roberta Butts, Dennis Cortijo, Todd Crego, Dan Dregmeyer, Tobias Enright, Alan Gilbert, Barbara Gilbert, Nancy Ferguson, Renee Marver, Livia Margalit Batilana Devora, Kaylin Nagel, Tom O'Neill, Savion Rashad, Chuck Riplane, Janet Rosenberg, Debbie Charay, Gary Smythe, Bobby Williams. To those names we add. As we carry these names in our heart, I invite you to join me with the Misha Barak for healing, which you'll find on the middle of page 371. Misha Barak avotenu mekor habracha limotenu. May the source of strength who blessed the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mishe berach imotenu mekor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen. Shabbat Shalom. Who remembers where they were the night that Princess Diana died? Does anyone? I do. It was August 30th, 1997, a Saturday night, and I was out having dinner with friends. I remember that a waiter came to our table to tell us that Princess Diana had been in a horrible car accident. Her condition had not yet been reported, and we spent the rest of the evening talking about the woman who was known by many across the world as the Queen of People's Hearts. When her death was confirmed early the next morning, I felt an amount of loss that caught me completely off guard. I had a difficult time grasping that she was gone. Over the next few days, I was glued to the news, and a week later, I woke up very, very early to watch the funeral on TV. According to estimates, more than 2 billion people around the world saw this broadcast. It was a once in a generation shared experience that was fully captured by media and recorded in history. As I studied Parshat Chukat from the book of Numbers this week, I was drawn to focus on the deaths of Miriam and Aaron and how they are recorded in Torah. Let's first look at Miriam. It won't take very long. In Numbers 20, verse 1, it is written, "The Israelites arrived in a body at the wilderness of Zin on the first new moon, and the people stayed at Kadesh. Miriam died there and was buried there." The text continues without further mention of Miriam. In fact, it is the last time that we read of Miriam's actions in Torah. The only subsequent mention of Miriam is in a genealogy a few chapters later. And now Aaron. Just a few verses further, we read, Moses stripped Aaron of his vestments and put them on his son Eleazar, and Aaron died there on the summit of the mountain. When Moses and Eleazar came down from the mountain, the whole community saw that Aaron had breathed his last, and the house of Israel bewailed Aaron for 30 days. Aaron's death is recorded as a pivotal moment in the transmission of the priesthood. All of the Israelites were aware of it, and they mourned Aaron for a month. Aaron's death results in a full stop for the Israelites as they take notice and mourn his passing. In comparison, Miriam's death has no historical, social, or religious context. There is no mourning. The Israelites do not see Miriam's death. None of us reads Torah in a vacuum. I'm always struck by how connections between the text and current events jump out at me. And this week, I could not help but to see Torah's treatment of Miriam's death in light of what happened last week at the Western Wall in Jerusalem. Many Jews regard the Western Wall as the holiest spot of Jewish life. In recent history, following the Six-Day War, the wall became a sacred symbol of Judaism and Jewish peoplehood. Sadly, it has also become a symbol of intra-Jewish conflict as the Orthodox and progressive Jews vehemently disagree about the place of women in Jewish prayer, quite literally. The Orthodox administration of the Western Wall is sanctioned by the State of Israel and enforces a strict policy of separating women from men. Women are relegated to a small portion of the wall. I'm going to stop here. Has anyone ever been there? The men's portion of the wall, I would say, is probably 60% is larger than the women's, maybe even a little more. It is much, much smaller. And they are separated from the men by a mechitza, a wall that keeps the men and women separate. There can be no crossing between the wall. The women there are forbidden by law from reading from the Torah or from wearing tefillin or a talit. In effect, the Western Wall is run like an Orthodox synagogue. This status quo is old news, but many in the Reform and conservative movements were quite encouraged in 2015, it's been a while, when a large group of progressive Jewish leaders and the government of former Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu reached a compromise brokered by Natan Sharansky of the Jewish Agency. They agreed to develop an area for egalitarian prayer at Robinson's Arch, which is adjacent to the existing Western Wall complex. Almost immediately, the fate of this agreement was in doubt when ultra-Orthodox members of the governing coalition objected to any concession that would allow women and men to pray together at the wall. The gridlock continues, although you can access Robinson's Arch and men and women can pray there together, but it is separate and unequal. The reaction from the Reform movement to this situation was swift. URJ President Rick Jacobs has repeatedly condemned the former prime minister's actions as unconscionable and unconscionable insult to the majority of world Jewry. Last week, this discrimination against all liberal Jews and women in particular continued with another ugly episode. As members of Women of the Wall, the pluralistic group of traditional and liberal Jewish women gathered for the monthly Rosh Chodesh service in the women's section of the Western Wall. The Times of Israel reports dozens of Haredi, that is ultra-Orthodox extremists, harassed Women of the Wall worshipers at their monthly service at the Western Wall, snatching suitcases that were carrying their prayer books and tearing out the pages. Several of them shouted that the prayer books were Sifrei Haminim, the books of sectarians, essentially calling them heretical, and which Jewish law orders to be destroyed. According to the worshipers, police officers and Western Wall ushers were at the scene, but they did not prevent the Haredi demonstrators from tearing up the prayer books. What a repugnant scene. I have been particularly struck by the words of Leslie Sachs, an activist for Israeli women's equality and the former executive director of Women of the Wall. In a video statement that was published by Haaretz, she said, "The battle at the Western Wall is not about religion. It is about power. A handful of Orthodox men run the holiest site to all Jews in the world. Over the years, they have turned it into something that resembles their kind of shul, their kind of synagogue, where women are hidden away, not seen, not heard. This is a move against women. This is a move against progress." Ms. Sachs framed the struggle for egalitarian prayer at the Western Wall in terms of men using their power to keep women from being seen. And as Chukat illustrates for us, this is nothing new. The redactors, the editors of the Torah, omitted any mention of the children of Israel mourning the death of the woman they called Miriam, the prophetess. And I believe with all my heart that they most certainly did mourn her. The rabbis, all men, used their position and their power, and the resulting Torah limited what we see of Miriam and the role she played as a leader of the Israelites. But as progressive Jews, we remember her. Some at Pesach Seders, when women fill Miriam's cup with water from their own glasses, or for anyone who has ever attended a URJ biennial and joined in the women dancing around the convention hall during the singing of Miriam's song. That experience alone makes biennial worth attending. But we aren't dancing at this moment. Instead, we are facing a series of broken promises. The current struggle for religious pluralism at the Western Wall seems so intractable at times that I succumb to pessimism. In those moments, I remember the words of another modern woman, a Jewish leader who certainly was quite visible as we look to further developments at the Western Wall. Prime Minister Golda Meir of blessed memory taught us that pessimism is a luxury that a Jew can never allow himself, she said, or herself. We must not give in to pessimism. As long as liberal Jews, both in Israel and in the diaspora, continue to hold the government of Israel accountable for making the Western Wall accessible for all Jews from across the streams of Judaism, we will make incremental progress, just as we remember Miriam and we see her. Shabbat Shalom. And now we have come to the time when we have some announcements for our community. And as board president Ellen Tom makes her way to the Bima, I will mention a couple of things that she can mentally scratch off her list if I say it before she gets here. Tomorrow morning, we'll be gathering here at 10 for a service that will begin at 10 a.m. So please, if you have RSVP'd for the service, please join us at 10 o'clock. And for everyone else, the service will be available via Zoom. And now I'd like to invite Ellen Tom to the Bima.
Shabbat Shalom and welcome. I'd like to highlight a few announcements. Welcome to those of you who are here in person tonight and also those joining us online. Thank you for continuing to wear your masks while inside the temple and staying socially distanced as you are seated. Mazel Tov to Matthew and his family as he is called to the Torah as a bar mitzvah, like you said, tomorrow morning, again, beginning at 10 a.m. You are invited to participate on Zoom, so please look for the link that was sent to you out in Thursday's email. Please also join us for a joyous consecration ceremony and events, which is next weekend, when we formally welcome Rabbi Meir Bargeron and his husband John as the 24th spiritual leader of Congregation Achdut Shalom. Our Shabbat evening service and consecration ceremony will begin at 5:45 p.m. in the sanctuary for those with a reservation and via live streaming. We are also pleased to be bringing back our 19th annual corned beef fundraiser on Thursday, November 4th. Please plan to assist when we prepare a large mailing for the sale on Thursday, August 26th at 10 a.m. and on corned beef prep night on Wednesday, November 3rd from 6 to 9. After service concludes, we kindly ask that you stay in your seat until the ushers have dismissed you by row. And thank you to our ushers, Andrew Bassell, Norm Greenberg, and Denny Reynolds, and our temple staff and security team. And thank you to Rabbi and Matthew and the Hadashi and Zimmerman family for the beautiful service. And Matthew, you did a wonderful job, and I have no doubt you'll do it again tomorrow. Also, any additional temple information can always be found on your service handout, our temple website and Facebook page. And then lastly, some of you may know and some of you may not know, but it is Rabbi's birthday today. So, well, of course, all right, yes. So we do have some gifts, which
Oh,
a
goodness.
little birdie told us that you like salted caramel. And
Yeah, a lot.
a lot, and we won't light this, but I know you like also Black Forest cake.
Oh, my
Candles
goodness.
are in there, so when you go home later, so,
There's not very many candles. Thank you.
well, but anyway. So hopefully, if you're all willing, we'll sing in English, and then if you care, we can do it in Hebrew, but let's sing happy birthday to Rabbi. So one, you don't want me singing, so I really need you guys to sing. 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Rob. Yay.
Oh, Toda Rabba. Thank you.
And many more.
Many.
Right. Shabbat Shalom.
Okay. Thank you. Perfect. Thank you, Alan. How to embarrass a rabbi. That's really lovely. It's really thank you for being such a kind community. We will begin the conclusion of our service on page 586, page 586 with Elenu. I have to find page 586. Got confused counting the candles. There we go. All right. Please rise as you are able. עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגוי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא, page 591. ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד. You may be seated for just a moment. We have come to the time when we remember those who are no longer with us, those who have died recently or in this season in years past. In just a moment, I will read our communal Kaddish list, the names of those who we remember together as a community. And when I come to the end of that list, I will pause and I will invite you to add the names of those you are remembering this Shabbat. The Shabbat continues the period of Shloshim, the death within the past 30 days of Joan Kramer and Carol Friedman. The Shabbat continues the period of Shana, the death within the past year of Manny Silverman, Ruby Jackson, Ron Subik, Harold Prigozhin, Sarah Lee Levin, Marilyn Salin, Marvin Krell, Jack Rosenberg, Leah Batmanasha Vabaila, Kathy Jarvis, James Lieb, Christina Bacher, Norman Snow. This Shabbat is the yahrzeit, the anniversary of death of Joel M. Bass, Toba Baum, Joseph Bialik, Elaine Biger, Levi Edlovich, Morris Ehrman, Morris Gladstone, Sarah Goldfarb, Bernard Gross, Ruth Hensel, Samuel Herman, Sarah Hirsch, Julius Lyman Issei, Dr. James B. Katz, Andy Coleman, Louis Levin, Betty Luskin, Catherine Kahn Mendelblatt, Babette Bobby DeSauer Newworth, Shajay Nichtern, Susan Schwartz Prigozhin, Herta Rosanis, Ada Rothberg, Lottie Salman, Siegfried Schmitz, Doris Sedgwick, Harold Shire, Esther Smith, Morris A. Stillpass, Nathan Stoller, Harry Trauner, Billy A. Wenbert, Wayne C. Whistler, Helena Wolf, Abraham Wolf. And to those names we add we remember with you. For all these names and the names in our heart and the names of those who have no one to say Mortar's Kaddish, I invite you to turn to page 598, page 598, and please rise as you are able in solidarity for Mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, be'alma divra cheroteh, ve'amlik malchuteh, v'chayachon v'yomachon v'chayeh dekol beit Israel, bagala uvizman kari v'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mavarak le'alam ulmei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabak v'yipa'ar v'yitnoram v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shemei dekudesha barichu, le'ela min kol birchata v'yishirata, Tush bechata v'nechamata damiran be'elma v'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu ve'akol Israel v'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'akol Israel v'imru amen. You may be seated. Thank you again for coming together to make community with us and to join Matthew and his family in celebration of Matthew's Simcha and their joy in it. So if we were together in normal times, like, not COVID, we would have a lovely oneg, and we would spend a few minutes nibbling and having a little something to drink. We would probably open that time with kiddush and motzi. Well, we are still not able to eat together, at least here in the temple building. But I would like to offer a symbolic kiddush, if you will, and perhaps this will be something that you will continue, and perhaps at your own Shabbat meals later. But I'd like to offer a brief kiddush. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen l'chaim. Shabbat shalom, everyone. Please wait for help from an usher so we can get out of here safely. I'm going to head directly outside so that I can greet you. Shabbat shalom, everyone.